Heavy rain crashed against the empty streets as Daniel slowly walked home. After another brutal night shift, every step felt heavier than the last. Another relationship destroyed. Another unpaid bill waiting on the kitchen table. Another night wondering how his entire life had quietly fallen apart without anyone noticing. The city around him felt cold and distant. As he stopped beneath the flickering traffic light, his eyes drifted toward the glowing digital clock hanging above a convenience store. 11:11. Daniel froze instantly. His chest tightened. Again. For years, that number had followed him like a shadow he could never escape. On receipts, phone screens, license plates. Hotel rooms. Train tickets. At first, he dismissed it as coincidence, nothing more. But eventually, a terrifying pattern began to reveal itself. Every single time the number appeared repeatedly, something in his life changed forever. Sometimes the changes brought success, sometimes they brought pain, but they always marked the beginning of something irreversible. And tonight, 11:11 had returned once again, not quietly, not accidentally, but like a warning waiting patiently for him to finally understand. Daniel first noticed the number when he was only 19 years old. It happened shortly after his father died. Unexpectedly, the grief shattered him for weeks. He barely spoke to anyone. He spent most nights sitting alone inside a tiny apartment, surrounded by silence so heavy it almost felt alive. One evening, while staring blankly at an old television screen, the image suddenly flickered. Then the clock on the cable box appeared. 11:11. At that exact moment, his phone rang. An old friend was calling with a job opportunity in another city. Daniel almost ignored the call, but something deep inside him whispered that he needed to answer. That single decision changed the entire direction of his life. He moved away, started over, built a future he never imagined possible. And somehow, the number stayed with him. At first, it only appeared once in a while, easy to ignore. Easy to explain away. But before every major turning point in his life, 11:11 returned. Always present. Always waiting in silence. As if something beyond his understanding had been watching him the entire time. Years passed, and Daniel tried convincing himself that none of it meant anything. But the pattern became impossible to deny. Before receiving a major promotion at work, 11:11 appeared everywhere he looked. Before getting engaged, the number followed him relentlessly for weeks. Then came the worst period of his entire life. 3 days before his fiancée disappeared without warning, Daniel woke up every single night at exactly 1:11 a.m. Not 1:10, not 1:12, always 1:11. At first, he blamed stress. Then anxiety, then exhaustion. But deep down, he knew something felt wrong. After she left, Daniel became consumed by obsession. He spent sleepless nights researching repeating numbers, synchronicities, spiritual awakenings, and so-called angel numbers. Every article promised comforting explanations, messages from the universe. Guidance. Protection. But none of it felt complete. The answers sounded shallow. To polished. To convenient. Because deep inside, Daniel sensed something far more unsettling. The number was not trying to comfort him. It was trying to prepare him for something coming closer with every passing day. One freezing winter night, Daniel sat alone inside an almost empty train station. The atmosphere felt strangely still. As he looked down at his ticket, a chill ran through his body. Platform 11 seat, 11, departure time, 11:11 p.m. His hand slowly tightened around the paper. Then, suddenly an elderly man, wearing a dark coat sat beside him. No luggage. No expression. No sound. Without even looking at Daniel, the stranger quietly spoke. "You've been seeing it for years, haven't you?" Daniel's heartbeat stopped. "What did you say?" The number. Silence swallowed the station. Daniel slowly turned toward him. "How do you know about that?" For the first time, the old man looked directly into his eyes, and something about his gaze felt deeply unsettling. Because it follows people who are meant to awaken. Daniel laughed nervously, trying to hide his fear. What does that even mean? The stranger leaned slightly closer. It means your life was never random. Those words hit Daniel harder than he expected. Before he could ask another question, the old man calmly stood up and disappeared into the moving crowd. Daniel rushed after him seconds later. But the stranger was gone, completely vanished. As if he had never existed at all. After that night, everything began changing. At first, the shifts were subtle. Daniel started sensing people's intentions. Before they spoke, he could feel danger before entering certain places. Sometimes, he instinctively knew when someone was lying directly to his face. The experiences terrified him. At work, he noticed co-workers smiling at him while secretly resenting him. Certain people felt unbearably heavy to be around. Others radiated a strange sense of peace without saying a single word. His intuition became impossible to ignore. And every time 1111 appeared, his awareness intensified. 1111, a signal, a doorway, a warning. One night, Daniel woke suddenly from sleep and walked toward the bathroom mirror. Beside him, the digital clock glowed brightly in the darkness. 1111. Then the lights flickered. For one horrifying second, he saw a tall shadow standing motionless behind him in the reflection, watching him. Daniel spun around instantly, but nobody was there. His breathing became heavy. His pulse panted violently in his chest, yet strangely, he did not feel fear. He felt recognition. As if some hidden part of him already knew exactly what was happening. Determined to uncover the truth, Daniel became completely consumed by the mystery. Weeks later, his search led him to a remote town filled with abandoned buildings and forgotten streets. Hidden between two old structures stood a tiny bookstore that looked untouched by time. Inside, he met a woman named Evelyn. The moment she looked at him, she already understood why he had come. "You've been called," she said quietly. Daniel stood frozen in silence. Evelyn slowly removed an ancient book from a dusty shelf and opened it carefully. Inside were handwritten notes, strange symbols, and passages dating back decades. Then, she pointed to a single sentence. "Those who repeatedly encounter the gateway number are standing near transformation." Daniel swallowed nervously. What kind of transformation? Evelyn looked directly into his eyes. The destruction of the full self. Silence filled the room. She explained that throughout history, certain individuals experienced repeating patterns before major spiritual awakenings. Not because they were special, not because they were superior, but because they were meant to see beyond illusion. According to Evelyn, the number itself was never magical. It was alignment, a signal that reality around a person was beginning to shift. And the more frequently the number appeared, the closer Daniel moved toward awakening completely. Then suddenly, Daniel's entire life began collapsing. He lost his job without warning. Friends slowly disappeared from his life. A violent storm flooded his apartment. Even his health started deteriorating from exhaustion and stress. And everywhere he looked 1111 again. Eventually, the pressure became unbearable. One night, Daniel stood alone in the darkness of his apartment and shouted into the silence, "If this is awakening, then why is my life being destroyed?" But deep down, he already knew the answer, because the version of himself he had been clinging to could not survive what was coming. Next, the comfortable lies. The false identity, the illusions he built his life around, all of it had to die. One evening, while walking alone through the city, Daniel stopped in front of a dark storefront window. He stared at his own reflection and barely recognized the man staring back at him. For the first time in his life, he understood something terrifying. 1111 never appeared before destruction. It appeared before rebirth. Months later, Daniel's life looked completely different. Not easier, but clearer. He no longer ignored his intuition. No longer chased people who drained his energy. No longer feared being alone. The old version of himself was gone. One quiet night, Daniel stood on a rooftop overlooking the glowing city skyline. For the first time in years, his mind felt peaceful. Then suddenly, his phone screen lit up beside him. 11:11. Daniel smiled softly, not with fear, not with confusion. But with understanding. Because he finally realized the truth. The number was never curse, and it was never random. It was a message. Reminder that every painful ending, every betrayal, every collapse had been guiding him toward awakening, toward becoming the person he was always meant to become. And somewhere beyond the glowing city lights, it almost felt as if the universe itself was watching silently from the darkness. Waiting. Guiding. Preparing the next chosen one.